I hate guys like that are proud of close losses. Like, you lost, bro. You're on a 3-fight losing streak. You're on your way up. You're closer to the Tony Ferguson streak than you are closer to being back in the title mix. So, yeah, pretty soon you're gonna that had you on that list of top welterweights. You're gonna be on that list full of forgotten welterweights if you just stay on the sidelines and just keep trying to, be this podcaster that you suck at.
He is the UFC welterweight champion of the world. I am always happy to speak to him, and he is on the mend and getting ready to defend that title later this year, but we got a lot to talk about. It is always my pleasure to speak to Belal Muhammad. Belal, how are you?
Good, my brother. How you doing?
I am fantastic, man. Thank you for taking time for me as always. Obviously, so much to talk about, but let me just start here. You're already back in training. You're healthy. It seems like everything's good, but how is the foot, man? I know, like, you never want to drop out of a fight, and I know how brokenhearted you were not to fight in December, but it seems like everything is good now.
Yeah, that's probably one of the hardest things to do. And then having 6 weeks of doing absolutely nothing was like, it was depressing. But yeah, thankfully, even 2 weeks ago, we're in Vegas for 2 weeks and training, and then going to the PI, getting therapy done. Yeah, I think I'm like right at the edge of getting back to normal. We've been working out now for like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and I think my body's finally normalized to everything and starting to get back to where I was beforehand.
Injuries are part of the sport. We understand that it's going to happen, but when that happened, you obviously had to go in the hospital. Like, what was the mindset? Because again, I know you never want to pull out of a fight, but like, I mean, obviously you couldn't fight through that.
Bro, yeah, it was one of those things where you're thinking it's just going to be a in and out thing, or even like a couple days in the hospital. But then we went in there, and then we had to take like an MRI, and he said, "Bro, if your foot lights up, that means it's in the bone." So we had to have surgery right away. We had the MRI, and he came into the room. He's like, "We got to have surgery right away." And it was like called osteomyelitis, and I'm like, "Well, all right, how long am I gonna be out for?" Like, I got to fight in 6 weeks. And then he's like, "Bro, you're gonna be like, you have to have a PICC line in your arm for 6 weeks." And I'm just like, "Wait, what?" And I'm like calling Dr. D and seeing if there's like something else we could do. And is there like an alternate thing or therapy or something? Like, what? Give me a pill. And he was just like, "Yeah, I'm gonna call them fights off. There's like nothing you could do." So that was just hard getting through that. And being in the hospital, it was like over a week. We were just sitting there, and you're alone, right? You're just thinking in your head, and you're just like, how did this happen? Why did this happen? God's testing you for a reason. But my mind is always just trusting God's plan and knowing that everything happens for a reason. So I'm just grateful for it. And it just made me fall in love with the sport again, right? It made me realize how much I love the sport, because not being able to work out and not being able to be in the gym is like, and you miss it so much. And now being there, you're just like, every day I get to train, every day I get to work out, every day I'm like healthy. You forget about being healthy and forget about the differences. And there's people out here that aren't don't have the ability to do what I do and do what they love every day and don't have the health, right? And I'm just grateful for it now, and I'm just grateful for being able to train right now.
I just picture you in the hospital. Like, can I gnaw my leg off? Is that possible? Like, could I do that? I just picture you being like, is that a possibility? Do I really need this foot? Like, that's what I picture you in the hospital.
Yeah. Like I told him, I was like, it was like the middle toe. And I was like, dude, I don't need the toe, right? I need the pinky and I need the thumb. And he's like, it's going up your foot now. So like your foot, like cutting the toe is not going to do anything. And I was like, oh yeah, no, that was a thought. But yeah, like, thankfully, I get to wear the same shoes right now. Like, even my toes like Mr. Deeds black right now, and people see it and like, "What the heck? Are you good now?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's good. It just don't touch it."
Yeah, and when you have a PICC line like that, like antibiotics, I mean, it just zaps you. It just absolutely zaps your body. So like, it takes a while to come back. I remember years ago, Carlos Condit had a staph infection. He ended up having a line for like 6 weeks, and it just completely zaps your body when you go through that. So it's like, it's beyond just the foot; it's your actual body. Like, when you go through that kind of course, antibiotics and everything, it just wipes you out.
Oh, bro, yeah. And then like the first couple of days coming back to training, like you felt like you never worked out before, and you're like, is this a normal thing now? It's like a normal cardio thing, and it's like, am I ever going to go back to where I was? Am I ever going to be what I was? And yeah, man, it's a lot of mental strength to get through that. And like I said, like you said, like zaps you, and you're just not doing anything. You're like, is it because of the antibiotics? Because I'm not. Or is it I'm sitting down, or is it like this? And yeah, it was a hard 6 weeks.
Yeah. So now, with that being said, I remember we talked right after the fight got announced, and you told me all the ways that you were confident in going out there and beating Shavkat Rakhmonov. Now, unfortunately, it's almost like everything you said kind of came true a little bit in the Ian Gary fight, because you said, does he have 5 rounds? Can he go 5 rounds? Can he keep up with my pace, my conditioning? These were all questions we all had, because he had never gone 5 rounds. He was a big finisher, but sometimes that comes back to bite you when you never actually had to go even 3 hard rounds. When you watch that fight, and again, credit to Shavkat, he got the decision, very close decision. But when you watch that 5th round, you see Ian take him down, you see him get his back, come very close to choking him out. Are you watching that fight thinking to yourself, like, this is exactly what I was talking about?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think he just gave me an extra 25 minutes to watch him, and 25 minutes of footage is not a good thing when you're fighting a guy that loves to watch footage. For myself, we saw weaknesses in him before that, and patterns before that, and like those same patterns came out in the Ian Gary fight. But also, you never want to look at somebody, or you had the mindset now where people are saying, "Oh, he sucks. He's not this. He's not that." For him, it's like you're still fighting somebody that you trained with before. That's always different. You're fighting somebody this guy's his height. Your first 5-round fight, you don't know what you're gonna do. So a lot of stuff goes into it on his end. So my end is just not overthinking the process. My end is just sticking to the strategy that we had before the fight. If we would implement it in that fight, we would have definitely done what we would have done. So now it's just getting back to what we do.
Yeah, I mean, he looked human, and I know a lot. I think there was an excitement. I remember talking to you, like, there was an excitement for you to go out there and kind of expose that and say, yeah, he's not Superman, he's not the boogeyman. I'm going to go out there and do that. And I always said, like, when the odds came out, and I was like, how is Belal the underdog? It makes no sense to me whatsoever. But again, I think everyone's kind of come back down to earth now. And again, as you said, like, there's always going to be a narrative, Belal. You know that. You could go out and fight. Yeah. Brock, you can go to heavyweight and fight Brock Lesnar and say, oh, well, Brock isn't this, he's that. So there's always going to be something. But obviously, I think people kind of came back down to earth and said, wow, maybe Belal shouldn't have been an underdog in this fight, because we just saw, like, he did look human. And obviously you are a different animal than Ian Gary.
Yeah, exactly. And he still hasn't fought anybody remotely like me. So if that was the fight that you're going to go out there and, they barely had a pace. It was they threw 60 strikes, 70 strikes, and you got tired in that fight. What do you think you're going to do when you fight a guy like me, who in my Leon Edwards fight, I had double the pace that both of them had?
Yeah, absolutely. So now to that point, in terms of timeline, again, you said you're just now getting back to the point where you can actually get into camp again. Like, I know you've been working out. I know you were out there with Islam and Umar and helping those guys out as much as you could, but now you're just getting back. And obviously we have Ramadan in March. Now, you were one of the guys, we did a story years ago, how you were one of the guys willing to fight during Ramadan. You took it as a challenge, but I also understand, like, when guys don't want to do that, I totally get it. So, and they already announced Pereira and Ankalaev in March, so obviously it's not going to be March. So do you have an ideal timeline as far as when you hope to fight, Shavkat?
Yeah, for me, it's May, June. I think that works like perfectly, where you're getting right after Ramadan, and it also gives me that timeline where I could also get a couple more fights in before the end of the year. For me, like I said, I want to be an active champion. So if we get that one in May, June, we get another one in October, then again before the end of the year. So yeah, for me, it's just trying to stay busy and just get this first one out the way.
Can I imagine? You tell me if I'm wrong, but can I imagine the conversations haven't started yet? Because you're just now getting back into where you can train full time again. Is that fair to say? Like, you haven't actually talked to the UFC and said, "Hey, let's book it for June." Like, can I imagine you're still waiting for an actual date?
Yeah, we're still waiting for an actual date. No talks or anything yet. So I'm assuming probably they were waiting for after this fight week, the first pay-per-view of the year, to get going. There was really I didn't expect anything. Those 3 weeks off that they had for New Year's. So now I think the UFC started to get going, get the ball rolling on booking fights and getting people, dates.
Yeah. So June, I think that would work out really well. May, June, I think that works out perfectly. And again, you know your assignment. You probably at this point you're probably sick of thinking about Shavkat Rakhmonov because you're already like a month into camp, and then obviously when that happened with your foot. So at this point, you're going to spend basically 7-8 months thinking about this guy. So I'm sure you're more than ready to go out there and defend your title.
Yeah, exactly. Like you get to that point where you're like, when you, I was just thinking about it with the Islam and Arman thing, right? If they like book the Arman rematch again, you're like, bro, he just had a full camp for him, and then you're gonna tell me you gotta have another camp for him. So that's kind of like my mindset where, but I already went through that, right? I was the backup for Leon and Kobe, and then I had to fight Leon right after that again. So it's only gonna be worse for him, right? Because now like you've been on my mind this long. You've been my full focus for this long. Now it's me just finding other little patterns, other little intricacies that you do, and I'm just gonna exploit them.
Absolutely. So now to that point, again, I know even though you're not fully back in training yet, you were out there helping Islam and Umar and helping that team get ready. I know that's become a big part of your training. Of course, you have your guy Lewis Taylor, all the guys out of Chicago that you're very much your home camp. But I know Islam and Khabib and those guys have become part of your camp. So how was it working with those guys and helping them as much as you could, in the lead up to this fight? So obviously Umar had an incredible fight. Unfortunately, he came up short, but Islam doing what Islam does, man. Like he just goes out there, doesn't blink. Hey, you're getting a new opponent 24 hours notice. I love what Dana said. He's like, I'm going to sleep. Just tell me who I'm fighting tomorrow. I love that attitude, but obviously I know you were out there helping those guys, and I'm sure you were very happy to see Islam find success. Tagir Ulanbekov also had success. Unfortunately, Umar came up just short, but I think we all expect him to get back there again.
Yeah, man. It was anytime you get to train with those guys and just be in that room full of like the energy, right? It's a different energy, it's a different feel. So that was always great to be there for a couple of weeks with those guys, and then to watch them in LA. And yeah, Tagir went out there first one, and then even in the Umar fight, like people are put these guys on such a high pedestal that now that since he lost, they're thinking, oh well, all the Dagestani suck. You guys are this, you guys are that. Like people were just waiting for it, right? They're waiting for it, and it was such a close fight. In my opinion, I thought Umar won, but it was so close, and nobody's ever like taken Merab to that close decisions like that recently. And they were even on all parts. So like the fact that Umar missed the takedown or Merab got a takedown, and people are just so like happy about it and just ready to cheer. And I'm like, bro, Umar is like one of the nicest guys in the world, one of the most humble guys that I've ever met. And like people are putting him on like this evil guy, like he just lost or something like that. And I hate it too, because it's like I know how bad they want to win. I know how bad Umar wanted to win, and he's not the guy that you want to cheer for when he loses. And he'll be back for sure. I think he's probably one of the toughest tests for Merab for sure. And that fight was so high level, so close that I think they have to run it back eventually. I don't think Umar is going to fall off the top list. I think whoever he fights next is going to be in for a rude awakening because it's only going to motivate him. It's only going to make him that much better. And then Islam goes out there, fights Moicano on 1 day notice, and showed why he's number one in pound for pound.
100%. All right, let me talk about the elephant in the room, because we all know afterwards, like your boy, Kamaru Usman's talking already and saying is now here. I want to be clear. I know I've asked you about this because we talked about this like a year ago. I said the whole thing with Islam, and you said you don't ever want to fight him. He's a brother. You don't want. And Islam has come out very publicly and said, I'll go to 185. I don't want to fight Belal. Khabib came out last week and said, no, I don't want that for Islam. I don't want that for Belal. They're family now. Like, they're not going to fight each other. Now, let me be clear about this. I've always liked Kamaru. I've always had a good relationship with Kamaru. I'm not knocking the guy. But when he said that, I was like, hold on now. Didn't you say you would never fight Israel Adesanya? You guys didn't train together. Like, you weren't training partners. You said you flat out refused. You said so. I'm just pointing that out because I was like, that's kind of odd that you're like, screw all friendships and teams. Like Islam should go up and fight Belal. And I'm like, but hold on, didn't you not want to fight Israel?
It's funny, right? Because that's exactly what it was. They never trained together, but he said, I'll never fight Israel. He also said he'll never fight Habib. And I'm like, bro, you never trained with him before. But that's the thing. When Kamaru was champion, he wasn't looking for test. He was a coward champion. He was the champion that, let me get the rematch with, Kobe, who sucks. Or let me get the rematch with Masvidal. And it's like, his reign was rematches. He never wanted to fight the next best guy. He never wanted to fight the guy on the hot streak. He avoided those guys, avoided those tough tests. He was like I said, the coward champion. He he wasn't looking for the toughest tests. He wasn't that guy. So when he says, "Oh man, these guys they train together," yeah, let's get rid of that notion. Be like, bro, shut up. You've never been in a room with Adesanya or worked out with it or sweated with Adesanya in your life, and you made it seem like you'll never fight him ever because he's your brother. But this guy's a podcaster now, right? That's what he is. He's not a fighter. And it also too, it's like you're number 2 in the division. Do you not want to get your name back in the mix by fighting one of these tough guys? No, because like I said, he doesn't want to take these tough fights. He doesn't want to take these tough tests. He'll fight the Hamzat on 1 week notice because now he has that excuse built up. If he loses, like, oh, at least I took him on 1 week notice, and nobody else would do that. But it was a close fight, so I'm proud to be in a close loss. I hate guys like that are proud of close losses. Like, you lost, bro. You're on a 3-fight losing streak. You're on your way up. You're closer to the Tony Ferguson streak than you are closer to being back in the title mix. So, yeah, pretty soon you're gonna people that had you on that list of top welterweights, you're gonna be on that list full of forgotten welterweights if you just stay on the sidelines and just keep trying to be this podcaster that you suck at.
And just to be clear, like I said, I want to make this clear because I know we've talked about it, but again, Islam has said this. This isn't just you saying, like, I don't want to fight Islam. Islam has said very publicly, like, I don't want to fight Belal Khabib, who is his coach, mentor, best friend. We don't. So it's not like you're saying this and no one else is agreeing.
Yeah.
Islam's like, give me that fight. Islam has said it and Khabib has said it. When Khabib says it, you're like, all right, story's over. Like, Khabib's the guy, right? Like, he's the guy who's going to ultimately make that decision. He's like, we don't want to fight Belal. He is part of the team. So again, I think this has gone on. It's so funny that came out, and I was just like, this is really odd because you both have said publicly, like, you don't want it. And Islam has said, I'll go up to 185. He already talked about maybe going up and fighting Dricus. Okay, great. Like, he's cool with that. And so I was just like, that's such a weird hill to die on. Like, they need to go up and fight. I'm like, why is that the hill to die on right now? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Exactly. Like you said, it's like if they're going out there calling me out and saying this and that, it's a different story. But they're just everybody's looking for that notion just to hate on me, right? They're looking for that notion just to be like, because they don't want me to be this champion. They want to make it seem like I don't belong, right? But I went out there and I just dominated the guy that beat you twice, Usman. Leon killed you. He knocked you out, put you out cold, and then dominated you. And I went out there and dominated him, and I made it look easy. So you acting like, I got lucky or I got this. Nah, bro. We're not on the same path. We're not on the same level. I'm going to surpass you as the welterweight GOAT. I'm going to be higher on that list than you ever were. And his ego's so big that he can't get over it. He keeps talking about himself like he's the king of the division, but he needs to realize that there's a new king. Yeah, your name's erased off the list. You're not at the top of the mountain no more. You're on your way down.
Yeah, and to that point, like, obviously I think we all want to see Kamaru get back in there and fight. Unfortunately, the options are getting kind of limited now because obviously you're fighting Shavkat, and I'm sure you saw they just announced Leon Edwards and Jack Della Maddalena, which is a really fun fight. Credit to Leon. Like, he didn't cry and say, I want a rematch. He's like, give me a fight. He's fighting in London, and Jack's a super tough guy. There's a potential there if Jack wins, that could potentially be your next opponent. I imagine, were you kind of looking at it that way?
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, after Shavkat, you're looking to see there's no clear next guy. So these guys need to fight each other. Jack is right there. So for Leon to want to get back in there, yeah, you got to beat a guy like Jack who's on a good streak. For Usman, it's like you just got called out by Buckley. You got called out by Ian. You got called out by all these guys. And then he's playing all these losers keep calling me out. Why you guys keep calling me out for? Don't worry about me when I'm healthy, blah, blah, blah. It's like, bro, you've been out over a year. Like, if your knees are gone, your knees are gone. Like, they're not going to get any better. You're not going to just randomly grow cartilage. Either defend your ranking or get out of the rankings because there's hungry guys, hungry contenders that are right there. But I think he just wants to be a podcaster, right? He wants to be that guy that kind of like a McGregor, where he stays in the mix just by saying stupid stuff and hoping that it gets headlines. Like, they're not going to be the guys that fight. They're not going to be the guys that want the next hungry guys anymore. So he's just going to be tweeting dumb stuff and saying dumb stuff. But then you're going to get a reaction from me, and you're going to look even dumber because then you're going to go silent because I'm going to have to treat you on there.
Yeah. Can I ask you about your opinion on that fight with Jack and Leon? It is an interesting fight. I mean, obviously, again, you went out and beat Leon very dominantly, but again, no one's going to fault and say Leon's not a good fighter. He is a good fighter fighting at home. But Jack just seems to find a way. I mean, again, he was losing to Gilbert Burns, and then boom, he comes out in the third round and gets the knockout. I think it's a really fun fight.
Yeah, I think it's a great fight. I think it's the fun, interesting matchup when you're thinking about styles, right? Like Jack's more of a boxer, Leon's a kickboxer, so it's going to be who gets to implement their range. If Leon wants to stay in kicking range, if he's able to stay in kicking range, it's going to be hard for Jack to get to his boxing. I think Leon has the edge in dictating the range, but I also think Leon also has the edge in wrestling if he decides to wrestle. We've seen Jack get taken down by Basil Hafiz pretty easily, and even Gilbert Burns took him down pretty easily. And I think he's been out with the injury, so I don't think that you're not going to get a new version, a wrestling version of Jack. I think it's going to be the same Jack, but we got to see what type of motivated Leon we get, right? Because he hasn't lost in 8 years, and then when you take your first loss, it's hard to come back from that. It's hard to flip the switch again and find that same hungry line that you were before get into the title. So being the fact that he took the fight, it tells me that he wants to get back in the mix. He wants to get his name up there again. So I'm interested to see it. But for me, I think Leon got the edge so far.
Yeah. And also, you mentioned, of course, Joaquin Buckley's out there. And I know Joaquin has been, I think, very respectful towards you. I don't think he's ever said, I don't think he's tried to trash talk you or anything like that. Obviously, he went out and beat Colby. Unfortunately, the way the fight ended, of course, Colby had his excuses afterwards. But I think we've all kind of moved on from the Colby Covington conversation at this stage. At least it seems that way. Are you keeping an eye on Joaquin? It seems like he's still probably one away. I don't think he's going to get a title shot just off the Colby, especially with you fighting Shavkat, May, June. So it'd be a really long layout. But do you have your eyes on Joaquin Buckley as a potential contender down the road?
Yeah, for sure. Like he's looked great since coming down to welterweight, and yeah, when he dominated Kobe, he made it look easy. And like you said, like the worst thing that happened in that fight was the fact that the doctor stopped it. So Kobe has that big excuses saying that, oh, I was just getting warmed up, I was just getting started. But as he's scratching his face trying to get the cut worse in between rounds, I'm looking at this guy like, is he scratching it himself? But yeah, I think Buckley looked great, and I think he did the right call out. Right, he called out Usman because you go out there, you beat Kobe and Usman back to back. Like your name's right there. You're in the mix, and he's already in the mix. So now it's like for him, is if Usman's going to stay hiding, I think maybe Carlos Prates would be a good fight for him, or even Ian Gary. They rebooked that fight.
Absolutely. Can I ask? I'm curious, Belal, because we go back so many years. We've talked about like you were the guy for the longest time. Like when Hamzat came in the division, you were the only guy calling him out. You were like, I want Hamzat. Give me Hamzat. And I remember talking to you after they called you and said London main event. You're like, give it to me. And then of course it changed. You didn't get that fight. And you were the guy for years. You're like, I want to fight Colby. I want to shut this guy up. I want to silence him. I'm curious. You're the champ now. You've moved so far beyond this. And obviously, again, I think Colby is out of title contention. I don't know that he'll ever get back there again. It would take a lot. And I just don't think it's going to happen. And obviously Hamzat has moved up to middleweight. Of those two guys, if you could have actually got one of those two guys, who would you have, like, if you're like, man, the one I missed out on, Hamzat or Colby, which one would you have rather had?
Bro, out of like anger, I would want to I always wanted to punch Kobe in his mouth, right? Just I wanted to just have that fight that to make him bleed, to make him feel pain. The Hamza one was out of competition. Like he's so good. He's the guy that another guy that everybody says the boogeyman and that. So for me, it was like to prove them that I belong up there. I'm the guy that could do it. Like I always see, I love challenges. So for Hamza, it was the challenge. For Kobe, it was the passion of just getting to punch him in his mouth.
Yeah, and I know you and Hamzat have actually become friends. I wanted to ask you, of course, we've seen a lot of news coming out recently about Palestine, the ceasefire. Can I ask, because obviously I know, again, you've been very proud about that. Your family's from there. How is everything? And are we moving in a better direction? Because this has just been an awful tragedy.
Yeah, it's hard, right? When you have over 400 days of killing and murdering and starvation and treating people like animals, and then all of a sudden, right before Trump gets in office, Biden makes I did the ceasefire. I did the ceasefire. I think he did it so Trump couldn't be the hero, right? So Trump couldn't be the guy that stopped it. But that just tells me that you could have did this the whole time. 40,000 people, could have still had their lives right now if you would have just did this, put your foot down and did it. But the ceasefire is not the end, right? Like these people, they need to rebuild. It's going to take over 10, 20 years to rebuild it. And a ceasefire is only a pause. Like we need this to be fully done. We need them to people to get their rightful land, to get what they deserve, to get happiness, to be able to live. For these young kids now that are cheering that there's a ceasefire, it's like, bro, these kids should be cheering that they get like ice cream. They shouldn't be cheering for, to be able to live without the fear of death. They shouldn't be able to live, cheering for the their mothers and their fathers to be home with them. Like they're gonna go home now to rubble. Like they have to build their houses again. They have to build everything again. But they're the strongest people in the world, and I know they're gonna get through it no matter what.
I remember we did a story years ago when you were going to go to Abu Dhabi and how excited and proud you were to fight close to home and be able to walk out. Can I ask, assuming, May, June, whenever you defend your title, is the plan, or do you hope to walk out with the Palestine flag? Because I know that would be something that's so important to you. And Dana has finally, they lifted the ban. They're allowing guys to walk out with flags again. Would that be the plan? I assume that was probably going to be the plan in December. Would you plan to walk out with the Palestine flag when you defend your title?
100%. And for me to be able to carry that flag with the belt, to be the champion, like it just gives them something to be proud of, right? Something they can point at and say, that's my flag. That's my countryman. That's my guy. So yeah, it just gives these kids something else to dream bigger about.
I mean, I remember seeing it like after you won the title, like what they're going through over there. People were still like sending you messages of support. Like, how amazing is that? Like what they're going through, and they're still like, we love you, Belal. We love what you represent. I was like, that just blew me away. Like, I'm sure if it blew me away, you were probably like in tears seeing like people reaching out to you, like know what they're going through. And they're still like, we love you, Belal. You're our champion.
Yeah, I mean, there was literally a refugee camp that had the fights on, and like they sent me a video of him, like all the kids cheering and all watching it while they were there, right? And yeah, that's those are the real heroes. Those are those guys that I do it for, and to get a cheer, to get a smile from one of these kids, to have them look up to me when I'm looking up to them. They're the strongest people in the world. They're the most resilient people in the world. To see the stuff that they're going through and the stuff that they're still grateful for, right? They're still grateful just to be alive every day. They're still grateful to be able to fight and still be able to live. And when I'm sitting there, I just fought 25 minutes. It's nothing. It's they're fighting to be alive. They're fighting every day to do this thing that we take for granted here in America.
Yeah, well, I really hope. It seems like we're moving in the right direction. Hopefully it continues. I don't want to put anything, out there and say otherwise, but hopefully it all moves in the right direction. We're all hopefully going towards a better time over there. And I know you've obviously been very constantly supporting that. And that's why every time we talk, I bring it up because I know how important it is to you. Belal, man, the sport is a better place with you in it. I'm glad you're feeling better. I'm glad you're getting back in there. We can't wait for the fight announcement so you can get back in there, defend your title against Shavkat Rakhmonov later this year. I can't wait. I'm sure once the fight gets announced, I'm sure we'll talk again, but obviously I want to catch up with you, being healthy again, going to the camp with Islam and those guys. So thank you as always for the time. I appreciate it. And man, can't wait to finally see you get out there and defend that belt later this year.
Appreciate you always, brother.